Today we're talking Ahsoka on Disney Plus. Is it right for your family or date night? Stay tuned to find out. Hello and welcome to Couple Chat,
where we
parents
discuss topics for you.
Parents. I'm Matt.
I'm Jackie. Let's chat.
So, this show, it's coming to an end when we're recording this, but there's only one episode left at this time. So I thought it was pretty appropriate that we start talking about it. I think we pretty much know where the ending's going. I mean, if they throw a loop in this, it'd be crazy. But most of the themes are there. The characters have been introduced. You know, I mean, everything that this show is supposed to be has come to fruition. And, you know, first and foremost, it really is a sequel to Rebels. Like, you know, this is Dave Filoni's like live action Rebels sequel. Just that's the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like his brainchild coming to reality. It's really cool to see because I know we watched that featurette where it was basically him in a writer's room with George being like, hey, so I have this idea. And then George was like, yes. So it was really cool to like kind of see that little tidbit of everything. But now to have it actually be on screen and almost done is pretty wild because I can only imagine how proud Dave is, let alone like all the fans. There are thousands of fans of Ahsoka as a character because of Rebels and Clone Wars, both the animated series. And I think this is just a pretty awesome continuation of her story.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ahsoka is Dave Filoni's character. I mean, if he had something that he could call his own, I mean, yeah, him and George developed her together, right? But realistically, that was like his jumping off point. Like when he finally took over Star Wars, like everyone was excited to see what was going to happen with Ahsoka. And, you know, even though Kathleen Kennedy is the one that's running Lucasfilm, like Dave Filoni is George Lucas's, you know, in real life, his apprentice. You know, like their relationship is master and apprentice. Like it's funny how that is a reality. Like, I don't know if Lucas did this intentionally or whatever the case was, but like Dave knows so much about Star Wars lore and like he understands every facet of the universe and the Skywalker saga and just everything about these characters. And like he's able to weave these plots and these storylines together and bring characters in and out and make sure it makes sense. And I mean, we live in a day and age where that's easy for everyone to like look up all this stuff and like find it for themselves. But it does get a little confusing now with, you know, what's canon and not canon, you know, what's a legend because of, you know, Disney taking over. So things do get a little confusing, but obviously Dave, who is in it and like this is his thing, he knows so much about it. And him and Jon Favreau have built this live action universe in series form on Disney Plus. And I mean, from Mandalorian all the way to Ahsoka now, like it almost every show has been phenomenal. Like I think the most lackluster one was Book of Boba Fett. And I mean, it still had some pretty good moments. It wasn't the greatest, but it was still a pretty decent show. I mean, Obi-Wan was hit or miss here and there. There were some good episodes, but overall, even that. But
I feel like Boba Fett was just Mandalorian season 1.5.
2.5.
Oh, it was between 2 and 3, right? So yeah. Mandalorian season 2.5 because like half the season of Boba had half a season of Boba had Mando in it.
It's been out long enough. Like, if somebody's watching this, they probably have watched Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I'm hoping if people are watching this or listening to this, they've also watched Ahsoka already. Or, the whole point of listening to Couple Chat is to find out if you're going to watch Ahsoka, if it's right for you and your family or a date night. Like, I'm not planning on going into any spoilers here. Everything that we are talking about today is things that happen in Rebels or Clone Wars. So it's like previous content leading up to Ahsoka. So, I mean, we're not discussing Ahsoka or spoiling it or anything. The only thing that I will say, so, as I said already, it is a huge sequel to Rebels and Clone Wars. So if you haven't seen those shows, you really need to. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they all go out there and say, yeah, you don't really need to. We give enough context. I mean, yes and no, but not really. There's just so much, especially with everything that was left on the table at the end of Rebels. Like, there's just so much to explain that it's not so easy to just explain it all away in the beginning of a series and then continue on with the story. Like, they can't really do that.
You can drop little hints here and there. And I feel like because certain hints are a little bit more subtle than others, you may get lost if you didn't see those other things. Right. And also, things come up in there that are mentioned in Rebels and Clone Wars that, like, wait a minute, that happened? Oh, that's where she came from? Or that's who she was involved with and kind of traveling the world with or the galaxy with. It's just interesting to see how they integrate it and kind of intertwine it in the writing of Ahsoka, the series. But at the same time, you just don't get that rich base story, and you don't feel the emotions for certain moments in the show. And I think that's why Rebels and Clone Wars are a really good prerequisite. It's also kind of along the lines of why you've made that list. Like, you went out of your way to make a watch list.
But
of
even
episodes.
That is like hard to follow these days.
I know.
The more and more content they make, like, that list that I made. So I made a list of Clone Wars and Rebels episodes for those who are not really into the animated side of Star Wars or watching anything animated, but they need to catch up on the lore. I made I think it was 45 to 50 episode list of essential Clone Wars and Rebels episodes. And I made it around the time of Mandalorian season 2, because when I saw the trailers, I was like, oh man, I know friends of mine who have not watched Clone Wars or Rebels who might be confused about things, like when they bring in Bo-Katan and everything that's going on with the Mandalorians and Mandalore. And I was like, there's no way that these people are going to understand all this stuff. And I mean, granted, just like with Ahsoka, they explain enough that you can get by, but it's so much better if you know the past. Yeah. So I made this list for those people. I had friends and family that wanted to see this stuff, but just didn't have the time. So I made the list. And now ever since, we're caught up on Mandalorian, that list has evolved because Ahsoka touches on so much more that's in Clone Wars and that's in Rebels. And her and I are doing this cool thing where we're rewatching Rebels while we're waiting for new episodes of Ahsoka to come out. So every week we just watch episodes of Rebels again to, just from refamiliarize ourselves with things. And it's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah. It's so great because we're watching sometimes after the Ahsoka episode airs, we're watching 3 to 4 Rebels episodes. And it's what? Oh my goodness. And it's so early on because we started it from episode 1 and we're not doing the list that you made, which is really cool. We're just watching, we're just straight up binge watching. And it's just so cool because each episode has that slight nuance or whatever's mentioned in that night's episode or just in general. And it heightens that experience. So what's really cool for us is because we watched it live or weekly as it released.
Ahsoka, you mean?
Ahsoka,
Yeah.
right? That we're having this experience where we can watch Rebels in between.
Yeah.
We'll
And
watch
sometimes,
like 10 to 15 episodes of Rebels per week.
Yeah.
Waiting.
And sometimes Clone Wars, because at the same time, her cousin is watching that curated list I made. I've added new episodes to it since watching most of Ahsoka, and she'll be with us and we'll be like, well, do you want to continue your Clone Wars episodes? And she's like, sure. So we'll just all of a sudden, like, we're watching Rebels. We watch an episode of Ahsoka and then boom, injection of Clone Wars. Yeah. It's like this weird, interesting, like Pulp Fiction style experience with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it works so well because like you're jumping around to all these different timelines.
Mm-hmm.
But then like when the next episode of Ahsoka comes up in the following Tuesday, it's like, whoa, I'm not confused. And like, I feel like it's fresh in my mind now.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
It's really cool. And like you said, Pulp Fiction, like you're all over and you got all these storylines and different times happening. But it's so rich. And it's so funny because I was just thinking it's kind of like the MCU, but now it's the SWCU. And it's just really cool for Ahsoka to just be able to have an Ahsoka CU, like an ACU. It's just
I mean,
really great.
She still has not appeared in a movie.
No, it's crazy.
Like I will say it took me a long time to even want to watch Clone Wars because of Ahsoka. Like I'm one of the many, because I know there are a lot of us out there. I'm one of the many that we had no interest in Clone Wars, and it wasn't because it was animated. It wasn't because of the style or the storytelling. It was because of Ahsoka. She was a terrible character when she first came out. She was whiny, annoying, an apprentice to Anakin. Like, it's just things that we didn't like. And I remember going, it was 2008 when the Clone Wars movie came out, which was just really a long pilot episode for the show. But I remember going to the movies, I'm pretty sure with my two best friends, and we thought it was horrendous. And it was so off-putting that we didn't watch Clone Wars. And throughout the years, I would hear my nephews as they grew older and my brother-in-law talk about how amazing the show is. They keep bringing back great characters and resolving their storylines and just finding ways to, incorporate things that happen in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith and the original trilogy. And it's like, I don't care. It's not, the show looks terrible. But then there were like little hints, like little things would happen. Like, oh, did you hear Ahsoka left the Jedi Order? And it's like, I don't know her that much, but that's actually kind of a cool idea. And like, so I would YouTube stuff in secret and be like, all right, let me see what this is all about. And I'd watch like a snippet here and there.
And Matt doesn't like spoilers, so I'm shocked he would watch something out of order.
I don't, but it's funny because it was more Rebels, but I remember that specifically from Clone Wars. I was just like, so many people were talking about it. And because I guess because I didn't care, like at that time I was like, I don't care about this. So I didn't have a problem with people like spoiling anything. Cause to me, I was like the snooty, like, oh, well, the movies. Cause at that time it was like, oh, well, George Lucas's movies are the only Star Wars. So like I had this like turned up nose about the Clone Wars, and like I didn't, I had to like in secret, like, I care a little bit, so let me check it out, and like that like intrigued me enough. But then it wasn't until Rebels came out that like things really started to like catch my eye, because then people were like, oh my God, did you see Vader and Ahsoka fought in Rebels? It was amazing. Like, I can't believe how they resolved their storyline. And like when people started talking about this, I'm like, wow, really? They went to that extent? Like Ahsoka's in Rebels now, and like they did all this. So I remember like, being in my 20s now, hearing about Ahsoka and Clone Wars all this time, and now Rebels. I was like, wow, I gotta watch this fight. Everybody's talking about it. So same thing. I went on YouTube, I watched it, and like I knew the fight before I finally watched it. And I didn't watch Clone Wars and Rebels until 2020 because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We had all this time. I was unemployed for a lot of the pandemic, and I was like, this is it. This is the moment where I could catch up on Clone Wars and Rebels while Jackie and I are shooting content and like taking care of our newborn baby boy. Like, I was just like blown away that I waited so long to finally watch it. And seeing those things like Ahsoka versus Vader, and then, before that, her leaving the Jedi Order, all these major story beats, seeing those things actually happen in their rightful spaces in the series was phenomenal. And like the way they built up her character throughout both shows is just, it's some of the best Star Wars storytelling in history. So for them to finally have this moment, Dave Filoni ended Rebels on this huge cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And for him to finally have this moment to do this, to make this series, to make Ahsoka live action, bring all his characters, to audiences in a way he's never been able to before. It's phenomenal. I'm very happy for him as a creator and a filmmaker. Like he's a filmmaker now. Yeah. This dude, like he created art, storyboards, then animation, and now he's a filmmaker. That's such a cool journey, and I'm really happy for him as a fellow filmmaker. Like it's just really cool to see that. But yeah, I mean, so to answer the big question, should you watch this with your family? I mean, 100%. Ahsoka is not a show that is going to be too violent or too different from anything Star Wars. No. Like I'm sure you could totally agree. Like everything that we're seeing here is right in the lines with the films. So if your kids have handled all the movies, it's not even, it has some dark moments, but nothing as dark as like Revenge of the Sith. Like Ahsoka is just pure Star Wars. It's phenomenal. You and your family are going to have a ball watching it. What I would say is if you're not a huge Star Wars fan and you like dabble in the universe and you come and go, maybe wait. It is over. So by the time you're listening to this, it's over. Yeah. So you're in a perfect position to watch it. I recommend watching it now. If we were putting this out before it ended, I would say no, because just like any of these shows, I know why Disney does it, and I know why, Netflix is doing it now, and every streaming service is doing this now.
HBO does it too.
Yeah,
they've been doing it though.
Yeah, but like I get why they're releasing episodically now again, because they want people to have subscriptions longer. So I get why. But realistically, these shows are not meant to be that way. You need to have the ability to binge watch if you want. And Ahsoka has that feeling. Like there are episodes where you're going to be like, that was all right. I wish I could watch the next one now.
Or let's watch the whole series again right now. Let's just binge it and like binge 1 through 4, then 1 through 5, then 1 through 6.
Right.
We've done that.
Well, but the only good thing that I could say, and it's what you've mentioned already, we've been able between episodes watch,
other content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Related to this.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was kind of like relating it to MCU, because MCU has so much content that like if you watch something at the end or in like phase 4 or 5, you could be lost depending on the film or show or whatever you watch. But with Star Wars, it's coming to be that same thing. You can watch Ahsoka without that, but like for us, we just love the content, so we'll watch it. But like for us, it's so rich. Yeah. And that's why it's worth mentioning.
Well, anyway, we decided that before we were going to watch Mandalorian season 3, we wanted to rewatch the first and second season. Then we watched Mando's episodes in Boba Fett.
Right.
To, just refamiliarize ourselves. It's been a while since we watched them. And then we watched Mando season 3, a little late than others, but it was good because we didn't have to worry about episodically. We were able to binge watch. Yeah. So because we did that so recently, like earlier in the summer, since Ahsoka started, it was fresh in our minds. Like every Mando episode in Boba Fett, Ahsoka was in one of them. So it's like we were able to, have her story fresh in our mind in live action. Mm-hmm. But, we didn't rewatch Clone Wars or Rebels or anything like that. But it's still like I'm glad we're doing it now.
Yeah.
And but realistically, watch it with your family, 100%. Like we don't right now because our kids are still pretty young. And I mean, Nate's not really into Star Wars yet. I've tried a couple times, but like he's not really there. I'm happy he's into Back to the Future. Like I'll take that. I'll take that big time right now.
That
so.
obsession is Matt's favorite. I am shocked that that wasn't our first episode because he is such a proud papa.
You know, I didn't even think about that, but maybe it's because so spoiler alert for the Han family, but you know, my birthday is on Tuesday and Jackie, thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
But we are going to see the Back to the Future musical on Broadway. And so I think I was just waiting to talk about that obsession until we do that. But yeah, so anyway, since our kids are so young, they're not watching Ahsoka with us.
It helps though that we have my cousin because she's of a good age. She's 16.
Yeah, but we're not watching it with her because she hasn't caught up. See,
that's what I mean. We're trying to get her caught up in this list you made.
Yeah, because I want her to experience it with us.
Right.
But it's funny because you know me.
I know.
Like I literally like put the gate down on her. Like I love her cousin so much, and I told her I was like, don't watch Ahsoka.
Nope.
Like
not
you're
allowed.
you're almost not allowed to watch it. She doesn't care anyway. She's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like she wants to, but like she's not like one of those where it's like, oh, here I go. I can't wait to watch this. And I was like, no, you can. It was just don't watch Ahsoka yet. Here's my list. Please do this for yourself. You'll love me and you'll care so much more about these characters if you do this.
Right.
And she's getting there. If you're watching this,
we love you.
You need to step up your game a bit. But yeah, she's got to get through it, and then you know we'll have another person to talk to. But like, yes, we would totally watch it with her. We watched episodes of Andor with her, and Andor is actually a show. Andor is the one show that's out on Disney Plus that I would say you really shouldn't watch with young kids.
No,
that's
Andor is really. I mean, Obi-Wan can be a bit dark. Obi-Wan has definitely a lot more dark stuff just because of like the themes in it and the violence from like his fights with Vader and everything that happens.
Nothing extreme. Like it's like Revenge of the Sith. You know, like it goes to that extent, but it's still like, I mean, Obi-Wan didn't have, you know, killing younglings in it.
No, you're right. But I just feel like Andor and Obi-Wan are a bit more on the adult or like
for sure
more young adult side.
Well, you could tell those shows were designed for the prequel young adults now because there's like 3 generations of Star Wars right now, and now we're going to be moving into a 4th with like my children as long as they want to be. But like there's 3 generations. You have the original trilogy camp,
right?
You have the prequel trilogy nerdies, that's where we land. You know, to the fact that this one was Darth Maul in 1999 Halloween. Dude,
paint and all. I even had the horns glued on. It was great. And then my sister was Padme, like full white makeup, red lip, crown or like headdress. It was awesome.
It's funny. I never dressed up for Halloween as a Star Wars character. I never did it. And my mom always did cool things for Halloween, but I never dressed up as a Star Wars character.
Weird.
I did like my own makeshift Darth Vader for the Revenge of the Sith premiere. You know, like when back in the day when, you know, like it was a midnight launch. Right. Like they don't do that anymore. You go Thursday at 2 p.m. and that's when the movie releases.
Right.
You know, but like I was Vader at midnight. Yeah, that was the only time I dressed up as a Star Wars character. Never for Halloween until like, you know, we did the pandemic Skywalker family.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
well, so you were saying you've got the OG.
Right. So there are these 3 separate. So you have the OG, then you have us who are the prequel fans, and now and then you have the animated series camp, and that's you know like my nephews and that you know that generation, Gen Z, I guess, you know, like if you want to think of it, Gen Z translates to the animated Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
So there are these 3 generations of Star Wars fans, and now, you know, actually our kids may not land in this, but now we're moving into the Disney Plus Star Wars fans.
I feel like though it's more so fan service. You got the Obi-Wan that was for the prequel kids.
Not
You got
Mandalorian, though.
Andor that's more of like pleasing everyone because of like
No, Andor's for
the mystery.
Yeah. Oh well, I guess I skipped
crime drama.
I guess I skipped the sequel trilogy people, but I don't think there are any of those. So.
As you can tell, we have low opinions of those.
What are those?
What are those?
Well,
What
it's
are
funny.
those?
It's funny because, you know, and it sucks. It sucks to like have this memory tainted. But Jackie and I never experienced a Star Wars film in theaters together until Force Awakens. And like at the time,
we loved it.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. We were high on what everybody else was high on.
Mm-hmm.
Like nostalgia. Like J.J. Abrams successfully made us all high on nostalgia.
That's why I like Force Awakens as a standalone. Like everything up until Finn and Kylo's fight, I loved. And
why that moment?
Because it's unrealistic. Like Finn would not be able to pick up the lightsaber.
Yeah, that did annoy me too.
It's BS. But after that, when Rey gets it, it's great.
Well, we thought that was amazing until until they finally reveal in Rise of Skywalker randomly, just for no reason, that she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Like, I don't know. Whatever. We're getting off the rails here. So anyway, so you have this new generation, which is like the Disney Plus generation, and they're getting all these shows, which are a mishmash of the other three generations and that other generation, the sequel generation. But like it's this mishmash, you know, because like they're touching upon all these different things and they're kind of bringing all the generations together now. You know, so it's kind of this cool, interesting space. And on top of that, it's a streaming service. So this new generation, this Disney Plus generation, can watch these new shows, but have the ability to go back and watch all these other things without having the trouble of like finding a DVD or VHS or whatever. Like they can just watch these things. They're accessible to them. Hey, oh, they mentioned this. I've never seen Empire Strikes Back. Let me just watch that movie. You know, like it's weird to say those things, but it's true. I mean, let's look at our own children. They haven't watched any of the movies or the shows or anything. I've tried, and I always start with Clone Wars now, you know, because I'm like, what's the easiest thing to get them into? I tried Clone Wars with Nate a few times and he just wasn't interested. However, I did eventually try A New Hope.
Right.
And we did get pretty far in that. But it was the pew-pewing that he wasn't interested in. So.
Well, the pew-pewing, he started getting in trouble for because he was pew-pewing at his friends and family.
Well, thank goodness that ship has sailed so far. So.
For the most part.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah. Ahsoka is phenomenal, and you need to experience it. If you have older kids and they love Star Wars, you may have already watched it. If you are on the fence or have been on the fence because maybe you don't know Ahsoka or you don't know enough about Ahsoka, watch the show. Watch the show and let her spirit and what Rosario Dawson does with the character and the others who play now live action versions of original, you know, animated characters, let all this like seep into you and you know, feel what Dave Filoni is trying to do. And, you know, if you haven't watched the animated series and you want to go back and do it after Ahsoka, by all means, 100% do that. If you don't have the time now, or you don't want to take the time now and you just want to watch Ahsoka, do it. Do it. It's a great time. Rosario Dawson's amazing. Her lightsaber dueling is phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love how in the behind the scenes, she's literally like, I'm taking this so seriously that I am making sure I'm ambidextrous. She made it a point to make sure that her left hand was just as strong as her right.
Yeah.
And that right there, I don't care what else she's doing.
Right there?
Or left.
Well, you said right.
Is what shows me that she's dedicated to the character. She may not be, unfortunately, Ashley Eckstein, who voiced the character.
Which I miss her so much. Because
I do too. But she plays a whole different version of Ahsoka.
She does, but like, and you know, you have to try and separate yourself from animation. But like, Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka, the original person who created this character with Dave and George, like, she just has so much more depth so much more range.
Yeah.
Like Ahsoka's ups and downs are felt so much through Ashley's performance of her.
Yeah.
And Rosario is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing a great job. But everything's so much more subtle. And she's playing an older version of even what Ashley Eckstein was.
Ashley Eckstein had this range where she went from a young teenager up to older than us.
Right.
In her range of being able to play the same person and still making you feel that she's grown up.
Yeah.
And then for Rosario to come in and feel even more experience and knowledge.
Right.
Wiser, yeah. Rosario plays the wiser, older. She's more like the Yoda now.
Yeah. I can agree with you on that. You know, the way she embodies Ahsoka feels more like Yoda than even, like you said, like Anakin. Like, I think she has some Anakin tendencies.
Sure.
But she definitely feels more like a Yoda.
Yeah.
In this.
I mean, your Padawan's always gonna, or your apprentice is always gonna have tendencies of the master.
Sure.
But then they put their own like personal flair on it, I guess. But I really love all of it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so if you haven't watched Ahsoka and you want to, and you'd like to experience Clone Wars and Rebels, but you don't have the time, I will put my 50-ish episode list in the description. You know, I would say it's a rough essentials. Like, I'm telling you guys, the more and more live action content that they put out on Disney Plus, the more and more that list grows to the point where, like, you can't even make a curated list anymore. Like, they're adding in things that I'm like, oh man, that subtle detail there. Like, there's a character in Ahsoka that has a huge role that is in like 4 episodes of Clone Wars
that I never saw.
Yeah, she hasn't even seen it yet, and I want to show it to her. I think we're probably just going to watch it this week because I was kind of waiting for your cousin to get to that point so we could all watch it together. But like, I was like, we have to watch them. We have to watch them so that even Jackie understands. And see, that's the problem because like Jackie didn't sit and watch the whole thing with me. She came in drips and drabs, and like she'd come and sit and be like, oh, this is interesting, let me watch. And I'd be like, yeah, check it out, this is it. And I would explain it to her. What? I
just got a great idea for a reel.
Content creation right here.
Yeah,
we need to get on our game, but at least we're getting there. But anyway, watch this show by yourselves, with your loved one, your partner, with your family, however you need to experience this show. It's phenomenal for Star Wars fans who are really into things or people who are loosely into it. It's a fun time, and just Jackie and I are having a great time with it. And we know you guys will too. So
yeah, for sure.
Cool. Anyway, I'm Matt.
I'm Jackie. Here are the Hahns signing out.
Thank you so much for listening to Couple Chat. Make sure to subscribe to us on Spotify or YouTube Music, and check out our YouTube page to see this episode in video. Thank you to Han Films for editing and producing this episode. Talk to you soon.